Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Metzger, someone who has a tendency to butcher Japanese pronunciation. And my co-host this week is a man who's just 3 degrees away from starting that Laserdisc collection. Ladies and gentlemen, David Reed. David, how are we doing today?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. All right. Good to know. Good to hear. And good to see it, too. For comments, concerns, thoughts, and hate mail, and what other films released in 1954 you have in mind, send them on over to snarpfanglepod@gmail.com, or you can just text Jake. All right, David, we are here again for yet another 2 films entry into the Snarp Fangle Podcast. For those uninitiated, it's a series of podcasts we do in Snarp Fangle here that we take 2 different films, put them together to a coherent theme, and see what kind of conversations we can get out of it. And we also review them and deep dive into them, just have a good conversation about them. And today, our theme is 2 1954 Japanese classics. Because we've been wanting to watch, I think, both of these films at some point, but then we found out they're both released in 1954. And I was like, hey, Seven Samurai, we got to put that in somewhere. And you're like, well, hey, Godzilla's the same year. And I was like, really? And sure enough, we decided to put these together. And what a grid pairing, and what a banger set of movies come out in 1954. We'll just say that.
Yeah, one interesting thing, too, that we didn't know going in is one actor is featured in the main cast of both movies.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the same actor who was featured in one of our other Japanese films that we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would be Takashi Shimura as well. What a good actor. There's actually a film that Akira Kurosawa did named, I have it written down here, it starts with an I. It's at the very end here. Ikuri, and it's about him, it's about somebody who, actually I have no idea what it's about, but it's about an old man reminiscing about childhood, I think, building children's playgrounds, I believe is the synopsis. And it just seems like a very sad film that looks interesting. So maybe we'll get to that one day. But today, we're diving into 2 films that were released in 1954 in Japan. The first one being Godzilla, the second one, Seven Samurai. So let's just dive right into the first one, which is Gojira. You ready, David? Let's do it. When a ship in the South Seas mysteriously disappears, a strange monster arises out of the ocean and terrorizes the people of the land of the rising sun. Directed by Yoshiro Honda, written by Takeo Murata, and director Yoshiro Honda. Original novel was written by Shigeru Kayama. Starring Akira Takarada, Momoko Koshi, Akihiko Harada? Yes, okay. Takashi Shimura and Fuyuki Murakami. With a budget of roughly $175,000 and a box office budget of $590,000. With a runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, released in 1954, David, what do we think of the OG Godzilla?
Great movie. Unlike many other films of the era, this one is surprisingly fast-paced and action-packed. So aside from, the usual hallmarks of older films of this era and of certain, I would say, Japanese cultural things, other than that, it really isn't missing anything in terms of like the modern movie experience. The special effects, although dated, are done rather well, and they don't look cheesy or out of place. Honestly, this is a fantastic achievement in terms of like just what filmmakers were capable of in the year 1954.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting watching this and then seeing the different cutaways away from Godzilla. Like, you could tell they knew that, oh, hey, this is a man in a suit, obviously. So let's make it as believable as possible. Versus some other films I've seen, like from Mystery Science Theater 3000, for example, like Gamera, which is unabashedly, unapologetically a man in a suit, and they make it very much so. And there's very little talent involved in those films, very little investment, and they're not very well done. But actually go and watch this film was very eye-opening, I would say, because it gives you a glimpse of a lot of, and as well as Seven Samurai, a glimpse of what everything else was inspired by. You look at this as the first notable, well-done monster film where you have this catastrophe, this cataclysm happen, and scientists are figuring things out, and then there's a resolution, a solution to the whole conundrum. And basically what I just described was every monster movie, every Transformers movie, tons of other films as well. This was kind of the granddaddy of them all. And it was really just, it was a fun watch too. Even though it released in this year, it's not poorly dated. Like, it aged pretty dang well. Yes, you can tell like some of the special effects are, very, not cheesy is not the word cheesy is not the word I would use. I would use just old.
Yeah.
The technology is just old.
Yeah, it's just old. Like, you can tell how old this film is. It's so apparent. Like, it's in black and white. The sound is not the sound is not up to today's quality standards. The effects are dated, and yet none of that is like a detriment to the film watching experience. I believe it holds up quite well.
Yeah. Especially when even stuff in like the 60s and 70s, like I would point to even some of the Ray Harryhausen films, which are also very well done in a lot of ways. Maybe the storytelling kind of falters, but the special effects are fantastic in those films. But even then, in some instances, you can tell that, yes, this is very, very old and it's very apparent. But in this film, yes, it's old, but it's very well done. It's well executed. And even all the characters and their interactions, like, yes, it's an old film, but it's entertaining. And I think that's why I would recommend it as well, is because you're like, oh, it's an old guy, it's gonna be so cheesy. And yeah, it's a dude in a suit, but they make sure it's at night. They make sure they're cutting away from any of the folds in the costume. They're taking care in all of that. And in the special effects, like the wires and the metal stuff and the destruction, the things that are melting in the scenes, the destruction of all those miniatures and sets. It's all very high quality. And even those times when you're like, oh, that's obviously a model train that they're just, driving through, there's enough craft and talent in the portrayal of those when they're making them, basically, and how they're shown, to be like, is that a model? Oh, it's a model. But it makes you think. Like, there's enough talent in the miniatures to think, is that real? But then you see it's real, but it makes you question at first. Like, it's that well done. So what did you think of like the story of this? Because I don't know your history with Godzilla films. I haven't seen a whole lot. I have seen the most recent one, Godzilla -1, which is fantastic. And it borrows a bunch of elements from the original, and with their own new spin on it, which was my biggest surprise to this. I was like, oh, this is basically the plot of the new one, but they kind of take it in a different direction that's very unique, I would say. But it's the same elements, the scientists, the monster, the bombs, that kind of thing. And to see that really honor this original film really opened my mind and made me enjoy this very much so. So if you have seen Godzilla -1 out there, those who are listening, I would highly recommend going back to this original and just taking in a gander. And it's not too long. It's only an hour. It's 90 minutes. It's not too long. And it's pretty cool. And David, the music. What are our thoughts on the theme?
Great theme. I've never seen Godzilla -1, so I had no idea they reused it, but it's it's cool to me that they did that.
Yeah, and I would imagine this theme has been used in many a film of Godzilla's, but man, let me tell you, dude, like hearing that theme when we started up this movie, I'm like, holy crap, this is the same theme. This is, and it's powerful, and the drums and just the it's fantastic. Like, man, the Japanese, man, they were cooking in the 50s, bro. Like, they put all that creative juice in some of these films that we're talking about today, and you can tell, like, lots of good stuff came out of it. So, but yeah, let's see, what else did I have written down here? I think it's funny because as I'm watching this, you can definitely tell a lot of inspiration that Steven Spielberg took from this film to coincide with like Jurassic Park, because there's lots of camera angles and techniques where they make the monster very large. In fact, I was reading in some of the trivia that they made a raised set, and that's how they got those shots. They also made like they intended on making a certain kind of flooring on the set where it was made out of wood and plaster, and so when the monster stepped down on it, he would leave a footprint. But in actuality, when they try to execute on that, the actors in the suits would just like lose their footing and fall, and so they couldn't go in that direction, so they had to scrap that idea. But you can tell, like if you go watch Jurassic Park right after this, you can tell the inspiration that Spielberg took from this film. And that's just one example. I'm sure there's many others out there, but I don't know. Did you see any kind of like when our discussion about the last two films episode we did, which I'm failing to remember, which wasn't too long ago. But we had a discussion about oh man, you can see a lot of this film. Oh, it was Dark City. That was it.
Yeah.
Like there you can tell a lot of inspiration that was taken from this film and what this film started. Was there anything particular that you saw in this film or you could see in other things?
I feel like what I saw was just like kind of like it almost seemed like a prototype of, all the Hollywood action blockbusters of later decades that we know and love. I feel like it seems to me that some of that showed up first here in Godzilla, because there's quite a lot of extended action sequences, which is uncommon for a movie in the 50s. And then you have things like them using miniatures to create like spectacular car crashes and train crashes and things like that. I remember when we watched it and I saw that train crash where it's obviously a miniature, but you can suspend enough disbelief where you can still enjoy watching it. But just like the overall feel of it, like it was just this like chaotic train crash where like, all the cars jumbled up, sparks were flying, things were exploding, things were catching on fire. I was reminded of the train crash scene in The Fugitive, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what a weird thing to, what a weird thing for my mind to jump to from watching this movie. But it's like, that made me think, it's like, wow, seems like Hollywood blockbusters really kind of like took a little piece of what this film was trying to do and they expanded on it.
Yeah, and it's cool too because in that train sequence in Godzilla here, they show like actual footage of people on a train to, to sell it, the shot beforehand, and then he cuts the miniature crashing. But it's done in a way that's very visceral. Like it cuts right to the train crashing. You're like, oh shoot. And like there's people in there. Like, yeah, it's a miniature, but they sell it really well, especially with the sparks, the pyrotechnics. Even stuff like Godzilla's tail smashing into the miniatures is super satisfying. Like I wasn't imagining to get something like that out of this film. I'd be like, oh, it's an old monster movie. But it was genuinely surprising in the amount of like care taken with the destruction. It's very cool. Very cool. Let me see. In terms of like the characters and the story, the characters I would say are okay. I think there's maybe two or three. Well, I guess there's only two or three major characters in this, maybe four, but maybe like two of them stood out to me or were people I were invested in. Mainly the chick, and then the other. It was her childhood friend, right? That was the scientist that comes
Yes.
up with the solution. Those two specifically, and yeah, it's all in Japanese and it's subtitled, but you get the story and you get the emotionality too, especially before the ending. You get a scene in this lab with those characters and like her boyfriend and everything. And it's, I wasn't expecting much from this, but I got more than I bargained for. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like the character work is kind of a little bit secondary to the overall vibe of the film, the monster, the pyrotechnics, the cinematography. I think is a little bit the character work's a little like lagging behind in that regard. But I wouldn't say there's no depth to the characters
Mm.
because for one you have the relationship between the girl and her friend the scientist as very like there's this whole kind of like saga of like them trying her trying to convince him to use his weapon he's created on to help kill Godzilla, and also she's trying to like introduce um this man that she's going to marry to her friend, and we're not really given a huge look into their backstory, but it's the implication when
Mm.
her and her fiance are talking about it is that they want to make sure that um she has the blessing of her scientist friend before they go through with it.
Mm.
So there was some kind of history there where they're like, okay, let's make sure he, before we go through with this marriage, we got to make sure he's okay with it. I got to introduce you to him, and we got to make sure he's cool with it first. And it's kind of interesting, and it all kind of comes back in the end, um, where he kind of like, it's revealed that he knew about them all along and he approved and wanted them to be happy all along. So
Mm.
it's kind of cool. Like you don't expect that from a monster movie,
Yeah.
especially not a monster movie made in the 50s.
Yeah. Especially.
And then there were some other cool, just little character moments, like um, the girl's father, who's played by Shimura, um, like just becoming progressively more and more depressed
Mm.
throughout the movie because his interest is in studying living things, and he really, 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 really wants to know more about Godzilla. He really wants to learn more about Godzilla, and he's trying to oppose military action, whenever he can, but it's becoming clear as Godzilla is causing more and more destruction that he has to be dealt with.
Hmm.
And just the weight of that, crushing his aspirations of studying this creature, of learning more about it. It's kind of, you see there's a scene where he's kind of just like sitting alone in his study, and the daughter comes in to check on him, and he just says, "Leave me alone." And like she goes, shuts the door, and he calls her back. He's like, "And also turn out the light." Because he was sitting there alone in the room with the lights off, and she comes in and turns the light on and asks what's up with him, and then he's like, "Leave me alone," and she goes, but then he calls her back. He's like, "And turn the light back off too." Like, he's really, really depressed.
I would say, let's see, Shimura, I believe, is the actor's name. Yeah, Shimura. As we'll go into Seven Samurai as well, his acting, and the more examples we were given, like at least you and me as we're viewing these movies, like the examples we're seeing of his acting chops really shine in pretty much 3 for 3 at this point. Definitely in Drunken Angel, definitely in this, and especially in Seven Samurai. And I think it's a cool idea that you have the warring of the two ideas of a monster, from the scientist who wants to prevent the destruction of this creature, but also the scientist that, let's see, maybe doesn't want the destruction of he wants the destruction of this creature, but he's not willing to give up his knowledge of how to destroy it, basically. And those two aspects being connected via the daughter character is really fascinating. And it's just a really interesting idea. And I think they execute it pretty dang well on this film. And there's just something about the stuff that, again, the media that comes out of Japan, whether it be anime, some of the older films like this, there's some really great things and great perspectives that come out of the media like this. That's very commendable because it's different from the West. And the emotionality that we see in Shimura's character is very, very well sold. And this guy, we were joking earlier when we were watching it, like, "Oh, Shira Honda? Is he part of the Honda family? Like, does his family own the Honda company and makes cars, And like, I don't know, but but one interesting aspect about this film, I think, is definitely that scientist character who doesn't want to give up his formula that I think I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, David. I think he says he stumbled upon this formula while testing and experimenting into something else, but he stumbled upon this, what's it called? Liquefying oxygen atoms in water, I believe is how it was described.
Well, it's called he calls it the oxygen destroyer.
Oxygen destroyer.
And basically the idea is that it explosively separates oxygen out of, like, the oxygen that's normally dissolved in water. Because one thing is, fish, sea creatures, they breathe oxygen too, but they're just their gills filter the oxygen out of the water, and so the idea is this causes an explosive removal of oxygen from water, so therefore making it inhospitable to life, as well as creating a large amount of heat, which causes actual destruction of their living tissue.
And Godzilla being a somewhat mutated. Well, it's not really. No, it's not. It's not framed as that, but it's framed as he has wakened up, or down deep in the ocean with these tests of hydrogen bombs, we have awakened this creature. I guess you can theorize potentially that he mutated and this is the result of that. But I
Well,
don't know. I don't think that's the case.
I think it's implied that he's mutated.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a lot of references to him just being radioactive and leaving radioactive traces wherever he goes. Like there's one part in the island scene where they mention that the well where he tore through the village is now contaminated by radiation.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I forgot about that aspect too.
So yeah, they don't like mention him like necessarily being physically mutated by atomic radiation, but there is the implication that because he's radioactive and actually leaves radioactive traces wherever he goes, I think the implication is that the H-bomb testing, all that radiation did something to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a funny scene though. Like at the well, they're like, "No, don't drink it." And they're like, "What about the other well across the island? We can drink that, right?" And other things like that.
No.
Oh no,
No. So they mention that was mentioned because they were puzzled that it seemed like only the wells on one side of the island where Godzilla went through were radioactive.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that was part of the clues that led them to think that led them to believe that Godzilla was actually leaving radioactive traces in his wake as he moved through the area. Was the fact that the radiation in the wells was only on the side of the island where he actually went through.
And it's interesting how they say hydrogen bombs as well, not any other kind of bombs. I guess that'd be the most. I guess that would be accurate, obviously. But
well, yeah, because there was a post World War II. Because Japan got nuclear bombs dropped on them, but they weren't hydrogen bombs. They were regular old just nuclear bombs.
Atomic.
So basically what happens, the difference between atomic bomb and a hydrogen bomb is that an atomic bomb uses neutrons to cause fission in a particular isotope of uranium, which releases nuclear energy in an explosive manner. So what a hydrogen bomb does, though, it's more properly known as a thermonuclear bomb. What a hydrogen bomb does is it uses a small uranium reaction to kickstart the fusion of hydrogen atoms, which is the process that fuels the sun. So it uses the extreme heat of the nuclear reaction that I just described to kickstart fusion of hydrogen atoms, which is a much more which releases a lot more energy than fusion releases a lot more energy than fission does, because the threshold of resistance that you have to overcome to actually get hydrogen atoms to fuse together is incredible. So it uses the heat of a regular atomic reaction of a fission reaction to create a fusion reaction, which creates a much bigger blast overall. So that was a post World War II innovation in nuclear weapons, was the development of the H-bomb. And there were a lot of hydrogen bomb tests carried out in the Pacific Ocean some near Japan before the U.S. government finally, got its act together and is like, nah, we're not going to do this no more. This isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
So no hydrogen bombs were ever actually used in war. They're just talking about the testing of them that happened quite a lot in the Pacific Ocean in the post World War II period.
And this film has a great setup because it's something that was real, that was in the real world. And that was the kickstart, I guess you could say, for the story, and something where the audience can connect to and say, oh, this could happen.
And I think also it was a present concern because this was in 1954. So I think thermonuclear weapons testing in the Pacific Ocean was still happening in 1954.
Yeah.
So this also was kind of like a contemporary, like it was like almost like a warning, like this is going on right now, and there could be consequences of this that we don't know about or that we don't understand.
Yeah,
kind of a thing, because you have the lines spoken by Shimura's character at the very end where he's like, well, we killed Godzilla, but if H-bomb testing continues, then we might have to deal with more of his kind.
A nod to the audience, like there's sequels on the way. No, not really, but it's a very cool morbid descriptor of, hey, like if we don't stop this, then who knows what else could happen. So, but speaking of who knows what else that can happen, let's dive into the trivia. All right, number one. One of the most famous legends, and again, before I continue, pause. This is IMDb trivia. I went through, I proofread the stuff, but I didn't when you deal with IMDb trivia, take it with a grain of salt. Some of it probably isn't true. There's been other 2 films things we've done where we're reading something and we're like, that doesn't sound right or real. So just take it with a grain of salt. But there's some really cool things in here. So starting off with number 1. One of the most famous legends regarding the production of this film has director Ishiro Honda and special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya on the observation deck of one of Tokyo's buildings. They were planning Godzilla's path of destruction on top of there for the film. And when visitors on the deck overheard their conversation, they became concerned. The pair was stopped by the authorities and questioned. That's pretty funny, actually. They're like, hey, how would he go across the city? You go up on the top of the building, you're planning it out with your buddy, and you're like, oh yeah, we can use this effect for that. What if he tears that building down, and blah, blah, blah. And then like people are like, oh no, what are they talking about? They're talking about that. They're gonna terrorize their terrorists or something like that. I think that's pretty funny. They're like, no, we're just a director and a special effects guy. We're from Toho Studios. I don't know. I just find that hilarious. All right, number 2, director John Carpenter is a fan of this film and has said, and I quote, I first saw Godzilla in 1956 at the tender age of 8. Something about the film filled me with a somber dread. Not the monster destroying Tokyo, but the overall tone. An underlying sadness. A sense of grief and horror. Japan is the only nation to suffer atomic attacks dropped on 2 of its cities, and Godzilla gave powerful expression to this emotional ambience, disguised as a giant monster movie. And, I guess, not to beat around the bush, but from what I've always gathered, this film's an analogy for is the atomic bombs in Japan, basically.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the interesting thing about it, too, is they don't ever reference atomic bombs in the movie at all.
Yeah.
They're specifically talking about hydrogen bombs not used in war, but simply
for testing,
being tested in the Pacific Ocean. So I wonder if that's part of it, because when I watched it, it seemed more like it was almost intended as like a plea for the U.S. government to stop its H-bomb testing. But it could have something to do with it could also be that the plea coming from the country that actually had nuclear weapons dropped on it in war would be felt a little stronger, kind of a thing, you know? Maybe there's that angle to it.
Yeah, it could be either way. When you're actually watching the film, it doesn't come off incredibly like that, I would say. Like, it's not apparently obvious for the atomic connection. But when you look at when this was made and all that kind of thing, it's doesn't take a whole lot of imagination, I would say, for Godzilla being an analogy for that. But it does make for a really good monster movie. We'll say that. So, anyway. Number 3, during Godzilla's rampage through downtown Tokyo, one of the buildings he destroys is the old Nishigeki Theater after his tail smashes into it. This is said to have frightened several viewers who were watching the film in that very theater, and some even tried to escape out of there.
My God.
That is so awesome. That's like people watching the Phantom of the Opera back in the day, like in the 20s, I believe, and then like fainting when the mask is revealed off the Phantom of the Opera, you know? It's like, it gives you those kind of vibes. So anyway, number 4, the name Goji. This is interesting. I was like, and I apologize if I butcher any pronunciations, past, present, and future. Here we go. Number 4, the name Gojira is a combination of the Japanese words gorilla, gorira, and whale, kujira. The monster is said to have been named because it alluded to a creature of great size and strength. There has always been a legend that Godzilla was named after a hulking man nicknamed Gojira who worked at Toho Studios. But this is not untrue. This is not true. Not only is there no evidence of this man ever existing, but the various stories about him kept changing throughout the years. He worked as a stagehand, he was a PR man, etc. According to Kimi Honda, the wife of Ishiro Honda, the man nicknamed Kojira was just an inside joke between her and her husband and people but in the Toho lot. So there's some interesting things in here where I'm like, oh, there's like famous rumors about this film or stories or legends that turned out to not be true. So, and that was one of them. Number 5, the scenes in the film of Godzilla underwater were filmed in quotes, dry for wet, with an aquarium complete with fish placed between the camera and the suit actor Haru Nakajima. This was combined with actual underwater footage of divers with additional dry wet scenes of Ogata and Serizawa. Director Ishiro Honda had experience in underwater filming, his feature-length film debut being about the lives of Amma Pearl divers, which was also the first Japanese film to use underwater filming techniques. So this guy knew his stuff about water, which is pretty cool. Number 6, while it is always assumed to be made of rubber, the original Godzilla suit was, according to suit actor Haru Nakajima, made from a ready mixed concrete mixture due to the limited supply of latex material in post-war Japan. The original suit was nearly impossible to use, resulting in a second suit being made using a liquid plastic polymer. The second suit was the one used for filming the majority of the scenes, with the first suit being cut in half so its legs could be used in close-ups. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, that goes to show you don't waste stuff. It's just like, hey, what else could we use this for, just in case, you know? The Godzilla suit used for the film was so hot inside that the actor would frequently faint. According to Nakajima, the suit actor, temperatures inside the suit would reach up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit due to the hot studio lights, and it was not uncommon for 1 cup of his sweat to be drained from the suit. Ugh. Special effects director Teruyoshi Nakano, who worked with Nakajima in the later Godzilla films, described his admiration for the actor, stating, and quote, "Inside the Godzilla suit, it was very dark, lonely, and isolated. Usually the person who wears the suit becomes nervous and anxious. During summertime, it's very hot. It can become hell in there. But Mr. Nakajima always persevered. He acted in the suit underwater. He was buried underground. He withstood pyrotechnic explosions. And through it all, he was always Godzilla." End quote. Number 8. Most of the electrical towers in the film were made of steel, but those that were melted by Godzilla's atomic breath were actually made of wax. The special effects crew melted them by blowing hot air on them, as well as shining hot studio lights on them for the white effect. I was curious as to how they did that, because when they show them and they're white, I'm like, how did they do that? Is it like a layer they put over the film to color it a certain way? No, it's literally just light on the metal, which is super neat. All right, number 9. Godzilla's destruction of the Diet Building had to be done multiple times, necessitating that the miniatures be rebuilt. The staff had spent over 30 days building and detailing the first miniature of the Diet Building, but Tsuburayara, the special effects director, deemed it unsatisfactory and had it torn down and rebuilt. Then, on the first day of filming, the suit actor tripped and destroyed the miniature.
Oh boy.
Both injuring his jaw and ruining the scene in the process. Man, there's so much stuff happen. These poor people. But hey, it's the love you have in the craft, that's for sure. Number 10, a common myth about the film's origin claims that director Ishiro Honda walked across the ruins of Hiroshima on his return from military service, amazed that the death and destruction caused an invisible force. Okay, whatever, IMDb. Continuing on. This allegedly inspired him to make nuclear power visible as a giant monster. This story was told in numerous articles and books for decades and was referenced multiple times. It was finally debunked by film scholars in their biography of Honda, which was published in 2017. Honda did not walk through Hiroshima, but rode a train that briefly stopped near the city, which had been closed off by a surrounding wall. So yeah, he went next to it, and apparently he was in the military. So, interesting. I kind of like that aspect of, well, how do I say this? I find it interesting, the aspect of actors and filmmakers who were in war and then continued to create film afterward. Jimmy Stewart was, I believe, in the Air Force or Navy, I believe. And he, of course, is a legendary actor. But there's others as well. And it's interesting to see, like Honda here, and of course some of those in Japan, that went on into kind of take that, kind of like you take the pain that you experience and you channel it in your art. I mean, that's been a tale as old as time for, hundreds of years for art in general. But I find it interesting, this specific era after World War II, both in America and in Japanese films, is fascinating. I don't know. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I feel like, it's a good perspective. I think it brings a good perspective, like somebody who is actually has experience in military service or combat or whatever, what have you, going on to either act in films or make films that deal with the subject. It lends a bit of realism to it.
Yeah, it's very cool, and some of the best art comes from that kind of thing. Not saying it's necessary, but just saying, like, the effort they put into their services as well is very commendable, and they translate that to their art, which is really cool. So anyway, continuing on. An often repeated myth is that the productions of both this and Seven Samurai nearly drove Toho to bankruptcy. This neglects to mention a third Toho film made that year, Samurai 1, Mashiro Miyamoto. All three of them were the most expensive Japanese films made up to that point, and big financial risks for Toho. However, there is little evidence to suggest that Toho was ever at risk of bankruptcy. Toho released a total of 68 feature films that year, and the most successful of which were Seven Samurai, Samurai 1, and Godzilla in that order. All right, finally, Toho's sound department tried numerous animal roars for Godzilla, but felt they were unsuitable for an animal of such immense size. The film's music director, Akira Ifukube, came up with Godzilla's roar by rubbing a coarse resin-coated leather glove up and down the strings of a contrabass, a double bass, and reverberating the recording, and the reverberating recorded the sound. Also, Godzilla's thunderous footsteps were made by beating a kettle drum with a knotted rope. So, very fascinating. Yeah, if you're a fan of monster movies at all, this is a must watch. Like, you got to watch the original Godzilla.
Yeah.
And there's
Maybe-
surprising. Oh, I'm sorry, you go.
Even if you're not a fan of monster movies, like this is just a great film to watch from just a historical perspective as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're interested in how the art of filmmaking progressed through the decades, this is a must watch.
Yeah. What I would love to do is, whether it be somebody who has never seen any of these films or whatever, maybe even my kids, I would show them the original Godzilla. And then right after, I'm like, all right, guys, 50 years later, let me show you how far technology came. And then I show them Jurassic Park. I think that would be a cool experiment to do. So, but yeah, the original Godzilla, we watched it on Cinemax, I think, like their streaming thing or whatever. I think, yeah, that's what we watched it, right? It was Cinemax, right? They have it for
we
some
watched
reason.
it. We watched it on YouTube.
Oh, sorry, YouTube. Yeah,
But it was through Cinemax like
channel?
subscription or
Oh, the
whatever.
subscription, yeah, like their channels or whatever you can subscribe to. So, or rent or that kind of thing. Pay money to subscribe to, because subscribing is different on YouTube. It's,
Yeah.
you
But it's it was available for free on YouTube at one point.
yeah,
So but then they come and go.
they
so.
come and go. Yeah, it's definitely worth the rent. Even that, I think I want to get the Blu-ray eventually too. It's really cool. It's a
Yeah.
cool piece of history. So, alrighty, David, are you ready for the next one?
Oh yeah.
Let's do it. All right, the second film that was released in 1954 that we have chosen for today's two films is Seven Samurai. So here we go. In an attempt to save their village, farmers seek the assistance of samurai to protect them from bandits. Accumulating to a total of 7, the samurai train, foster, and protect this unfortunate village in need. Directed by Akira Kurosawa. Written by Kinosuke Ukuza and Akira Kurosawa. Starring Toshiro Mifune, Takashi Shimura, Kiko Tsushima, Daisuke Kato, Minoru Chaiki, Isao Kimura, Seiji Miyaguchi, and of course the legend, David. Bokuzen Hidari, our retarded farmer character. With a budget of, and this was for the time, so
I was thinking of his face. His face.
Okay, well, we'll get to him. With a budget of 125 million yen, also translated to, it was about $866,000 in 1954. So it was about 860K. That accumulates to $5 million in modern days time. Box office of $1 million worldwide. That's crazy. In a runtime of 3 hours and 27 minutes, released in 1954. David, what do we think of Seven Samurai?
This one is, I would say it's a great film, but unlike Godzilla, I wouldn't exactly recommend this to just anybody.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a certain mindset, I think, to really get a lot out of this film. But if you are into films, you like films, you're not just a casual movie enjoyer, but you are actually into films and filmmaking, this is a truly great film, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Yes. If there are certain films out there that we have described that are sort of, for lack of a better term, impenetrable. This, I wouldn't say is that, But it's, again, like you said, a certain mindset has to be taken into it for sure.
Yeah, there's just a kind of like almost like a high barrier to entry because you've got the fact that it's, it's a 1954 Japanese film. So you're dealing with black and white, terrible sound quality, and, subtitles. But, so that's already like, you know, like for a casual movie enjoyer, like that would be a hurdle to get over. But if they were watching a film like Godzilla, I feel like they would feel it was worth it in the end.
Correct. Yeah.
This one not only has those same barriers, being it was from same country of origin, same year of release, but also the fact that it's like 3 hours long,
Yeah.
and has very, I would just say the characters are much more Japanese in this film than they are in a film like Godzilla. Like, there's just a certain way that drama is done in Japanese culture that's not like American drama. And you see it in, most of the time, people are exposed to it in the form of anime. And because it's anime, that sort of phenomenon gets sort of almost compartmentalized in people's minds, I think. And they don't think too much about it. But then when you watch something like this, which is clearly not an anime film, but it has some of the same tendencies towards overly melodramatic characters and hyper intense acting. Like this puts Shatner's overacting to shame. It could come as a shock to the system when you start to see these things in a context that's not anime. Because at least when it's an anime, you're kind of prepared for it.
Yeah.
In this, if you didn't already know that this was a feature of Japanese drama in general, then you would, like a cultural thing that Japanese actors do, then you wouldn't be prepared for it.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think for me, the hardest reasons to recommend this, like you're saying, is definitely, it's old, it's in Japanese, it's black and white. The runtime also is another thing stacked on top of that. I honestly don't think the runtime's an incredibly, I don't think it's a big issue, honestly. Like, for me, it kind of went by a little faster than I thought, but that's because I was invested in a lot of the characters. But for your average moviegoer, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this. But if you are into film or you appreciate film, yeah, you should probably watch this. There's a lot in this film, kind of like Godzilla, that you will see, or that you do see in modern media and many media released after this. Not just everything about samurais, which Akira Kurosawa helped foster in the film era, in film itself, but also characterizations. There's been many a film that's taken inspiration from this film. There's even films that are based direct remakes of this film. If you just Google like Seven Samurai inspired films, you'll get stuff like, of course, Magnificent Seven, which has been many a remake of that film. For some reason, Bug's Life is mentioned in there, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of a Seven Samurai story.
It's the same plot.
It's the same plot, yeah.
Just applied to cartoon bugs.
And of course, there's many scenes in different films you'll point out that are heavily inspired from this film. So this is definitely one of those, like, kind of what's that? kind of like Citizen Kane, where, oh, this, after this, things were different, basically. But this is far more entertaining than Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane's more like just a drama piece. And it's very modern in its sense. And that's one thing I do want to get to. This film's interesting because, yes, you're in 1954, but also you're filming like on location. You're not in a studio at all. In fact, in the trivia, I think it's mentioned that Akira Kurosawa refused to build sets to film in the studio, the Toho studio. He wanted to go outside. And of course, that was very expensive. And I think it's so much better. It's ended up being the best decision ever. Now, of course, you're dealing with a lot of sets outside, exposed to the elements, with a lot of actors and a lot of people and a lot of crew. And of course, it's Japan and it's hot. Like, there's a lot of barriers that this film had to overcome to get made. And I think when you look at it from a filmmaking perspective, it's incredibly impressive. But as a film, let's go back a little bit. As a film, it's pretty dang good. Mostly because of the characters and the character interactions. And the whole plot is pretty interesting and very unique for the time. But it was funny because the first half of this film basically is a lot of build up to what we have to do, right? But during that, the character interactions and the way they talk to each other, the finding of all 7 samurai is really fun. They each have their moment and they're introduced in a very unique way that's unique to that character. As well as just Miyafune just stealing the show all the time. But I would say it's the characters and, of course, I would say even the action, as well as the flow of things. I think the flow is actually pretty good for what this is. There is a lot of things I would cut out of this film. There's a whole thing about the armor and the samurai armor that I think is it adds context to the characters, but I think it's kind of dumb. Like, there's some parts of this I would cut out.
Well, it's supposed to be a moment of tension because the samurai don't really like the idea that these farmers have been like basically plundering stuff from other samurai, and it's supposed to be kind of like a moment of tension where it's like, okay, is this plan gonna break down in this moment?
Yeah.
And I think your problem was that you didn't watch the scene.
Yeah, that's true. I was writing notes and I looked up and I'm like, what happened? And you're like, what are you retarded? Like, you didn't watch this? You didn't literally look at the screen?
It was like literally a whole scene that you missed.
Yeah, it would very much be helpful to look at the screen of a subtitled film to understand what is happening. But even if it's like, it's hard to recommend because of those barriers, but looking at it from the perspective of like entertainment, it's an entertaining film. Like, all the characters, the introductions, their interactions, the action, the big final, like the siege in the end of the film that lasts like an hour, days and days and days, is really great and is very well handled, because it's also an aspect, and I wrote this in my notes, I was like, it's an aspect that is incredibly difficult to write for, because it's the most boring part about a war. You're waiting. A lot of it is just waiting. But they have enough interesting things happening throughout that whole siege, the days-long siege, where you are invested, you're entertained, it carries you along, it snatches you up. It makes you like fear for these characters because you've had so much time invested in them already. So I would say the film strives and achieves what it sets out to do. And because of that, in my book, I would recommend it. Like, again, not to the average moviegoer, but if you like look up this actor or that actor, if you're at that level of moviegoing, and which is the first degree up, I would say, I would recommend it to you.
Yeah, and despite the high barrier of entry that we've been discussing, it's by no means is is it a boring film.
No.
If you're able to overcome those barriers of entry and invest yourself in the film, you will be entertained.
Yeah. And as of at least right now of this recording, it's on Max as well as a bunch of Akira Kurosawa films as well. So highly recommend it there. Yeah, let's go through some of the things we liked about it as well. What else did I write down here? The character introductions, the interactions. Let's talk about Mifune for a second. This crazy samurai character.
Yeah, Mifune. He's not actually a samurai.
Okay, so that's something I did miss. Okay, so I'm glad you said that. Thank you for confirming it. Because I was reading that he's not a samurai, and I'm like, I don't remember that being mentioned, but there was a lot of times I was looking away from the screen, so I appreciate you. So he's not technically.
He's not a samurai. So he's basically he's introduced as just like a drunk who is starting fights, but nobody can beat him. Like he's just besting everybody. And the what's his face? The lead samurai guy.
Oh, Shimada.
Shimura. There we go.
Shimura, yeah.
Yeah, Shimura's character, like he has some of the farmers come with him on their expedition to recruit more samurai. And so one of them comes to him talking about this guy and basically kind of assumes that he's a samurai because he's just like, he seems to be unbeatable in combat, according to this guy's story. Well, then it's of course later revealed that he's not, that he was raised as a farmer in a village, but his village got attacked and he had to make his own way in the world with all of his family and friends dead. And yeah, he's kind of like trying to pass himself off as a samurai, to sort of, he wants to be seen as like kind of like their equal. Like he's invested a lot of time and effort into becoming a warrior, but he doesn't have the samurai upbringing. He doesn't have the things that actually make a samurai. So what he wants to be seen as like their equal. He wants to join up with their crew to kind of prove himself, but he kind of shoots himself in the foot because he tries to join their crew by producing a fake genealogy. And they see through it, and then he gets real angry, gets drunk, but he's just like so determined to prove himself that he won't leave them alone, and eventually they just kind of like, they find him entertaining, so they're like, yeah, okay, I guess you can just come along with us and be our seventh.
Yeah, and the name, I love that whole scene of him just rushing through. And they're like, yeah, a real samurai. They get the young samurai at the door to hit whoever enters with a stick, because a samurai would not fall for that trick. Walk through a doorway unprepared. And sure enough, Kikochiro, as he's referred to later on, is just knocked the F out. Like he's like, ugh, like he's also already drunk.
Yeah,
Shimura.
Like, yeah, well, the guy who tells Shimura's character about him is like, you're really going to do that to him? He's been drinking. And Shimura is going off of the assumption that he's actually a real samurai.
Yeah.
And so his response is, no true samurai would ever get drunk enough to dull his senses to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then, well, he walks through the door and he gets bonked on the head. So there goes that right out the window.
Yeah. And then like he falls over himself, and then he shows him the genealogy chart, or the list of names. And then like your name's Kiko Chiro. Also, you'd be 13 right now. You're 13 years old. You're a grown ass man. Like there's so much thought put into all the dialogue, and I love that scene's a very good example of it. And as well as the armor side of things, when Kikochiro has to convince all of them to keep going and to just forget this. Like, what are you guys doing? Because it's interesting, that whole thing brings in an aspect of, because of their honor in quotes, they're debating whether we should just give this all up and go away because of that. And we shouldn't honor those that have dishonored us. But Kikochiro, Miyafune's character, is like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, these bandits are going to kill these people. Like, he's this wild card that is thrown in, but he's kind of the humanity that kind of saves most of everybody. Like, he's the guy that infiltrates the bandits. He's the guy that goes along and tries to kill a lot of the bandits. He's also the guy who brings up the flag after one of the samurai die. It's really, really interesting to see his character be this focal point and be basically one of the main reasons why they keep going in the first place. So it's really cool, like all the stuff they have his character do. So yeah, I like that aspect a lot. And it keeps it entertaining because this film's 3.5 hours long. Honestly, I don't think the runtime's a huge issue, but I could see my mom, who famously fast forwards through lots of films. Like when we were watching the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, which is about roughly 10 to 11 hours long if you just sit down and watch it straight, she'll be done in about half of that time. Like, she's, we'll be done with Fellowship of the Ring in like 90 minutes, because she's like, okay, fast forward, they're walking. Okay, all right, they're talking. All right, the orcs are talking. All right, they're making the orcs. Oh, look, Gollum's talking. Fast forward. Like, she'll just go through all that. Oh, Gandalf. Okay, well, we're supposed to press play. She'll get done with this film in like an hour. But speaking of getting through this film, what was the other thing I was going to bring up? The introductions. I like how they all work together in the character interactions. Each one's unique. You have the samurai who's chopping the wood. You have the samurai who's in a duel. You have, of course, the young samurai who's like, I beg of you to bring me on as a pupil. At the very beginning, you also have Miyafune's character who's like kind of stalking Shimura's character and just like, he's like, walking around and being weird. The villagers are. They're villagers, they're here for the plot, I guess. But the main thing is the samurai for sure.
Yeah. Well, the villagers too are an interesting aspect because, like, all of their.
I guess I should say just toward the beginning when they're looking for the samurai, those guys are like, they're we don't really get a whole lot about them later on, but we get details of what state of the village is in and why they're doing this, obviously.
Yeah, but it's the villagers as a whole is a great sort of character arc in and of itself, because we start off the movie, they're like, totally everything they do is based on fear. The like social order of the village is starting to come apart because of the stress of having to deal with these bandits year after year. And just things are not going well for them. And it's gotten to the point where they don't even have the mindset where they could defend their village. Like, they've just been so beaten down to the point where everything they do is a fear response. And the village elder basically says as much when he speaks to the samurai, because when the samurai come to the village, instead of going out to greet them, they hide because they think the samurai are going to, like, beat them or rape their daughters or stuff like that,
Yeah.
And then so to go from that to like, with zero martial training at all, like helping fend off an invasion of bandits, that's a pretty cool character arc.
Yeah. Especially when you some of the last shots of the film are about their character arc, basically.
Yeah, because it's not just the samurai facing off the bandits, it's the samurai trying to equip the villagers to defend their village. That's really the arc of this movie, is not about samurai fighting bandits. It's about these samurai trying to take on a seemingly impossible task of getting the villagers to a place where they're able to actually defend their own village.
Hmm. And especially our favorite villager, of course,
Oh, Farmer Yohei.
Farmer Yohei, man. So something I found out is something that Akira Kurosawa would say to all of his actors is he would say, I want you to find an expression or something your character does, and I want you to repeat that through the film as a trait of your character, whether it be how they grieve, whether it be how they run, or how they say a certain word or whatever, or how they look or how they react to things. And I could totally see that actor being like, and then Akira Kurosawa would yeah, just keep doing that. And then he just does it through the whole freaking film. And oh my God, this farmer character, Farmer Yohei, he's just got the funniest, most ridiculous expression on his face. He is basically the poster of I have no mouth and I must scream. That's what he is. And he's like, ah! And he's like, oh my God, David,
I feel like for context, you're gonna have to put this guy's face front and center on the thumbnail.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, ah!
And also this goes back to what I was talking about Japanese culture.
Yes.
Is that sort of over exaggeration is definitely is rooted in the culture of Japanese dramas.
Yeah.
So this film being extremely Japanese, you're going to see that a lot. And if you're like most Westerners and the only Japanese media you've ever been exposed to is anime, it might come as a shock to the system to see it outside that context.
Yeah, to see it in a live action scenario as well. Because here's the thing. There's certain characters in anime and different Japanese media I've noticed that don't have character arcs whatsoever. They're just there and they're there for one single thing. And this character is there for that. He's just there to mourn, be sad. He has some context. Oh no, he doesn't have a daughter, no. But he's just very, I wrote in my notes, I'm like, dang, Farmer Yohei, man, what a loser. He is just there to be the loser character and to just be beaten down. There's no third dimension to him.
Well, to be fair, he does get a little bit of depth later on in the movie when they're infiltrating the bandit camp.
Does he go with them?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot.
The lady in the bandit camp is Yohei's wife.
Oh, I didn't remember that. And we watched it just, not too long ago. So,
yeah, because
wow.
I
missed a lot of this movie, apparently.
Yohei says earlier in the film that he doesn't have a wife. And every time, Mifune's character, starts talking about, hey man, you got to find yourself a girl, Yohei is not happy.
Yeah.
So so it never says it outright, but you can tell by watching the movie is that Yohei's wife was captured by bandits and he thought she was dead. And then so when he goes with them to infiltrate the bandits' fortress and they find her there, but then she is tragically killed along with many of the other bandits as they burn down the fortress. It's there's a little bit of a depth to Yohei. There's a little bit of a reason for why he acts the way that he does.
Yeah, I apologize. that I don't remember that because also when we were starting this film, I also started a video project on Premiere. And I was looking at it quite a bit until probably about a half an hour in. I'm like, I should probably just stop this and focus on notes and focusing on the movie. And even was focusing on the notes as I'm writing, like stuff will happen. I'm like, oh God, David, what happened? So that's don't start a video project when you start a film.
Yeah,
especially if it's subtitled.
Yeah, if you're gonna watch this movie,
you don't understand the language.
Don't do other things while you watch this movie.
Yes,
or you're gonna miss stuff.
There's times where like Eileen Chelsea will invite me over and we'll watch like some new anime movie they want to watch or something, and I'll be there. They'll be like sub or dub, and I'll be like, oh, well, let's do dub so I can be on my like Steam Deck or whatever, like play a game while I watch the movie. But anyway, and then when the sub is mentioned, I'm like, oh. Okay, I'll focus on the film. All right. Well, anyway, Farmer Yohei, shout out to you, man. You're a third dimensional loser, but we appreciate you. All right. One other thing I want to say is there ain't no CGI in this movie, man. Those are real burning huts, man. They are burning all that crap down. They are running through all that water. They are climbing all them trees. They are jumping out of those trees. They are riding those horses. The muskets probably don't have real bullets, but everything else is pretty much real. Like, also the swords probably aren't sharpened. But anyway, the point is, there's a lot that all these actors do, which is like, dang, that's... Because they're not just doing that one shot. They're doing that one shot like probably up to 10 times maybe. So, pretty impressive for sure. I love all the little humorous things we see in this film. Kind of like... the whole interaction with Miyafune's character being drunk, coming in, getting knocked out, him being called Kiko Kichiro, which is a girl's name, all that kind of stuff. I even like him in the serious parts where, like the part, for example, where the first night of the raid, the guy with the daughter gets shot and someone sends to fetch his daughter because he's like, I'm going to die, go get her. And then somebody goes and runs. And then one of the samurais looks at him and he looks at his arm. He's like, you're not even injured. Like, shut up. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, he just says, like, you're ridiculous. Like, I can't believe you. Like, it was really funny. Like, he's like, I'm going to die. And then he's like, you're not even hurt. What's going on? There's no blood coming from anywhere. Like, moments like that are really great. The part with the kids when they're handing out the rice to him is super sweet. Like, Miyafune's, or Kikochiro, that character is like, hey, you kids, you don't deserve rice. If you're this excited about rice and you have this much energy, you don't need no rice, and just little moments like that bring a lot of levity to a very, very dark film, but it does shine a light in those very dark places. Was there any moment that stood out to you? We can go into the battle too, if you want to do that next, but, was there any little humorous moments that stood out to you at all?
Yeah, just the whole like thing with Mifune's character just being an utter dope.
Yep.
At times. Like, he's so desperate to be seen as like the equal of these samurai that he just does stupid things, like randomly berates the villagers for no reason. He orders them around just to get them to do stupid stuff, just because he's so desperate to be seen as an equal to these samurai. And then you have the guy who wants to be Shimura's character's apprentice, who's not a samurai, but he has an upper class upbringing. He just needs to become the apprentice of a samurai to learn their ways. So he's like a samurai hopeful, basically. And he's like, he is like really enamored with one of the samurai in particular, and just like how he like goes on about him, like, oh man, he's so great, he's like so brave, and like, and he doesn't even like brag about it either, and
Is he talking about Shimura's character?
No, he's talking about the dual samurai.
Oh, the dual samurai. Okay, that was it. Yeah.
Because he's
he's like looking up to him like, oh.
Because he's like, initially he wants to be Shimura's apprentice because he sees how he handles the bandit who took the kid as a hostage in the beginning of the film. And Shimura's not interested in taking on an apprentice, but he lets him tag along anyway. And then when he sees the dual samurai, whose name I don't know,
Yeah, I don't remember.
Go and infiltrate the bandit camp and steal a musket from them, he's like starstruck, and he's like, that's all he can talk about.
Yep.
And of course, he is gushing over this guy to Mifune's character, who, you know, is probably really annoyed because he's like, why are you talking about him so much? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then you have also his, little romantic escapade with the
Shino.
with Shino, yeah. And yeah, it's really fun.
The farmer's daughter.
It's really funny too how that whole thing plays out. Like Shino's father like forcibly cuts her hair off.
Yeah.
Like cuts her hair short because he's so afraid that these samurai are gonna rape her.
Mm-hmm.
And so he like cuts her hair short and makes her, like in the beginning at least, try to pretend to be a boy. And she doesn't want to do it, but he's like literally physically forces her to. And it's all because like he's like literally getting on top of her and pushing her to the ground. And it's almost rapey in a sense, the way that he does it.
Yeah, and
the way he like dominates her, all because he's afraid that she's gonna get raped by some samurai coming into the village.
Yet again, more actions just played out just because of fear. Like there's other places in the village that you could hide out or just be kept away from the village. Like there's ways to handle that situation, and he just
and then when
just so used to this lifestyle of fear.
And then when he finds out, that the young samurai hopeful and her did the horizontal boogie, he just loses his mind and begins to beat her.
I know, it's like, geez.
It's like this mindset of fear has just overcome him to the point where he's become exactly the kind of person he was afraid of to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, they're in a life and death scenario at that point in the film, but it's no excuse for, that behavior and everything. And in fact, everybody is so like disappointed in them that they just kind of just leave those three characters, the young samurai, Shino, and then the father just getting rained on. They just walk away. They're like, all right, well, okay. And then they leave. So, and even I think it was Shimura who's like, look, there's young people are going to do young, dumb things, and especially in this kind of scenario. But he's like, no, it's not right. But, and at that point, they're like, well, there's no convincing him. So we're just going to walk away. Just let him wallow in his sadness. So, very, very poignant scene for sure. What did I write here? Oh, I wrote lots of crack in this film. There's a lot of butt crackage in this film for sure.
I wouldn't call it crack.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely cracks.
No, it's not crack. It's cheek.
Cheeks? Okay, there's a lot of cheeks in this film.
Your brain is tricked into thinking it's crack because they're wearing the traditional Japanese undergarments.
True.
Which are much narrower in the back than they are in the front.
Yeah, and when you're moving around, it's gonna ride up regardless,
Yeah.
So it looks like a lot of crack.
Yeah, it's really it's more cheek than crack. But I mean, that's also another Japanese cultural thing.
Yeah.
Is like
well, back in the day,
Well, I mean, you see that in modern like anime films and whatnot that are set in those periods.
Well, yeah,
where they were
the periods though.
Yeah, so it's like
of that time in Japan, this was the tradition.
Yeah, but like in what I'm saying is, even in a modern film, intended for modern audiences, like Japanese audiences don't think twice about it because they know that that's just the kind of the what they would have worn back in those days.
Hmm.
And depending on how old someone is, they may even know somebody who,
Yeah.
like way back in the day, who
Hmm.
like one of their great grandparents or something who dressed like that at one point. Um, so it's just one of those things. It's like American audiences, you know, we've seen dudes like, working in like, out working in the sun in short shorts or whatever in movies before. It's just kind of a thing. Like if a bunch of dudes are out working in the hot sun, they're gonna want to be wearing as the least amount of clothing possible. But just the difference between what an American considers to be the bare minimum of covering up and what a Japanese person considers to be the bare minimum of covering up are not exactly the same. And
Hmm.
so there is a little bit of a culture shock there because it's set in a village where
Yeah.
there's a lot of men who are working in the hot sun, and they're not wearing boxer shorts like we might expect them to be wearing in in a scene like that. They're wearing traditional Japanese undergarments, so there's going to be a culture
It's gonna be a
shock
culture shock. A lot of
if
cheek.
you're not if you're not
If you're not privy to the cheek.
if you're not prepared to see the butt cheeks of Japanese men, then this is going to come as a shock to you.
Oh man. Speaking of Japanese men, let's talk as briefly or as long as we want to about the main samurai, Shimura's character named Kanbei Shimada or Kambi Shimada. And he's this old wise sage character, but he's the leader of the crew. And this is where the acting of Takashi Shimura really stands out. Like, at least from all the, like, definitely in Drunken Angel, like, wow, what a performance. And he's pretty good in Godzilla for the moments he's there. But in this, he like shines. And it's really, really cool. And so does Miyafune and several, pretty much everybody does, I would say. But specifically, Shimura's character here, like, he's the leader, he's the wise sage, he's the level-headed of them all, most level-headed of them all, besides maybe the dual samurai. But he balances everybody out. And it's really, really cool to see him interact with everybody. Um, what he views and like kind of the audience, like how we see it go, what we see go on and everything. Really interesting. I particularly like the scene of him talking to Miyafune for the first time, like in the hut where he's drunk and he comes in. I think I know that's like the second time, but regardless, like that whole scenario of him drunkenly running around chasing the young fella around, and him like saying, "Ah, come on, man," and all this, and they're making fun of him, but it's I don't know, it's just he really brings, especially how we're introduced to him, the whole scene of them shaving his head, and we're like, what's happening here? Is he like getting dishonorably like booted out of the village or something? And then we follow that character, and he changes into, puts different clothes on, and we are revealed what the situation is. And that whole scenario about him rescuing the kid and killing the kidnapper is really cool. Like, what a cool opening. What a great introduction to the other characters we're going to be introduced as well, the other samurai. And he basically establishes the honor and the prowess that samurais had back in the day. It's really cool to see. I don't know. What did you think of Shimura's character?
Yeah, Shimura's character was I think the standout in this film. He just the way he kind of brings all the other characters together, um, and his sense of humor, but also his like he's got this like war wariness sort of thing around him about him. Like he's just kind of like he's kind of like, he's willing to go through it to help save this village, but he's just kind of tired of it all. Um, and you see that really clearly in the end when all the villagers are celebrating the bandits being defeated, and then you have Shimura's character and his buddy from way back, who's the first one of the first other samurai that gets recruited, looking upon the graves of their four fallen comrades.
Mm.
And it's a really great shot too, the way it frames
Yeah.
the graves. You have the graves of like the grave mounds of like the villagers midway up the hill, and then at the very top of the hill you have a line of four grave mounds with the swords stuck in each one.
Mm.
And yeah, they're just both looking up at that, and then Shimura's character is just like, yeah, their victory, it's their victory. We're once more we're on the losing side.
Mm.
Referring to just, he's referring to just how the loss of his comrades and everything they had to sacrifice to bring to save this village.
Mm. Yeah, it's, man, what a picture. Like, Seven Samurai is very fascinating and a good watch for sure. Let's see. I think we should just dive into the trivia here, and then we'll end it there. And we can also just stop in between and say whatever.
Yeah.
So
On a side note, pause. I have like an hour and a half before I have to go, so
yeah.
should get this.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up now. No worries. So let's dive into the IMDb trivia here. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but a lot of this was very interesting. Number one, as the production process grew longer and longer, producers grew worried that Akira Kurosawa was spending too much money on the film. As a result, production was closed down at least twice, in quotes. Instead of arguing, Kurosawa simply left to go fishing, believing that the studio had already invested so much money into the film that they wouldn't simply scrap it. And he turned out to be right. It's pretty great. What a gangster. He's like, well, we're already out here. We got probably like, a month left of shooting. And they're going to shut us down? Nah, no way. Not happening. It's pretty cool. All right, number two. After months of research, all of the 7 major characters in the film wound up being based on historical samurai. It's pretty cool. All right. And speaking of that, this is how it was all written. Number 3. Akira Kurosawa's original idea for the film was to make it about a day in the life of a samurai, beginning with him rising from bed, eating breakfast, going to his master's castle, and ending the film with him making a mistake that required him to go home and kill himself to save face. Despite a good deal of research, Kurosawa did not feel he had enough solid factual information to make the film. He then pitched the idea of a film that would cover a series of 5 samurai battles, based on the lives of famous Japanese swordsmen. Hashimoto, his writer, went off to write that script, but Kurosawa ultimately scrapped the idea, as well as worrying that a film that was just, in quotes, a series of climaxes, end quotes, wouldn't work. Then, producer Sojiro Motoki found, through historical research, that samurai in the warring states period of Japanese history would often volunteer to stand guard at peasant villages overnight in exchange for food and lodging. Kurosawa then came across an anecdote about a village hiring samurai to protect them and decided to use that idea. Kurosawa wrote a complete dossier for each character with a speaking role. In it were details about what they wore, their favorite foods, their past history, their speaking habits, their reaction to the battle, and every other detail he could think about. No other Japanese director had ever done this before. That's pretty cool, like the whole journey of how he got the idea for this, Like he's like, no, I want to make a historically accurate film about what a samurai does in a day. And then in doing so, he's like, I just don't got enough for this. And then one thing leads to another, and it eventually ends with that, And also it ended with, after doing more research about the warring states. That's pretty cool. And what century does this take place in, David? I don't remember.
This would be the 14th century,
14th
the
century.
very end of the 14th century, because they mentioned that the fake person that, or no, the person that Mifune's character tried to pass himself off as was born in 1574, but then would be 13 years old at the present time.
Yeah.
So this is the very end of the 14th century.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. And as well as on the note of research, number 2, after months of research, all of the set. Oh no, I already just read that. I'm sorry, I had to scroll down. There we go. Number 4, Akira Kurosawa designed a registry of all 101 residents of the village, even creating entire family trees to help the extras build their characters and relationships with each other. Like, gosh dang, man, he put in so much effort to at least the writing of this, and of course the directing. And by the way, the cinematography, man, the movements of the camera, that's why I think this film really stands the test of time, because there's so many techniques that are used in this that are very modern. And you can tell, it's one of the films that, went on to inspire others and really was profound for the day. And you can tell why. Like some of the shots, especially of the fire, the water, a lot of running around, a lot of Mifune just running around with his, just freaking out, So much energy is packed into each frame, I would say, I guess is what I'm getting to. So pretty cool. Number 5, when it opened, it was the most expensive Japanese film ever made to that point. Number 6, for several scenes, particularly the climactic battle, Akira Kurosawa knew they were pieces of action that he could only capture once. So he set up 3 different cameras at various points on the village set and later cut that footage together to create a dynamic sequence of events. And also the cameras were equipped with telephoto lenses, which allowed the cameras to zoom in on the action. And this, of course, carried on to many a film afterward. It's probably one reason why it was the most expensive film in Japan at that point. 3 cameras for just, that one shot, obviously, and they're using them for other things. But that's a lot, versus just having one camera. All right, number 7, Akira Kurosawa, Shinobu Hashimoto, and Hideo Uguni wrote the final script over 45 days, taking no phone calls or visitors, with few exceptions. The constant writing took a toll on their bodies, and sickness sickness was rampant in post-war Japan. At one point, Kurosawa wound up in the hospital with roundworms. Ugh. I don't know what that is, but it sounds disgusting. Number 8, Akira Kurosawa's ancestors were samurai, roughly up to 100 years before he made the film. Although I will say that's one of the things I see where I'm like, I don't know, IMDb trivia. I don't know about that one. But it'd be cool.
Well, I mean, the samurai didn't truly die out as a class until the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, I think there's something I was watching and it was a documentary and they mentioned something about in the 1800s, which would be the 19th century, there were samurai walking around. So, which is pretty cool. Imagine, David, you got the concept of Red Dead Redemption, right? It's the end of the cowboy era. You're a long lost era of cowboys. The Wild West is conquered. It's no longer wild. Imagine that, but Japan in the 1800s. That would be dope.
I'm pretty sure that
it's probably been done.
Has been done many a time. I wouldn't be surprised if Kurosawa himself probably did that at some point.
Yeah,
because I mean, the guy made a
lot of movies,
quite a few samurai films, which this actually makes me want to watch more of his samurai stuff specifically, because I've heard that Yojimbo is one that was really influential among modern filmmakers, and then I believe George Lucas mentioned being really inspired by, I think, the Hidden Fortress.
Yes.
I think it's called.
Yeah, Hidden Fortress.
To create Star Wars.
Yeah. That's the one a lot of those big ones that you're talking about are actually on HBO Max right now. And I was actually scrolling through them before we were recording here, and I was like, man, these look really cool. Like, because this is our second Kurosawa film, at least the second one I've ever seen. I don't know if you've seen any more or whatever. But
Yeah, this would be
your
the second one I've seen.
Yeah, I would love to. We should watch like the Hidden Fortress or Yojimbo or something like that. It'd be fun. There's also another one with Shimura that he made called I mentioned it earlier. It's called Ikiru, which looks like a more modern drama, but I would be interested to watch that. All right, let's see. Where was I? Number 9. Not only was this Toshiro Miyafune's favorite of his own films, but he named Kikuchiro as his favorite role because he was able to, in quotes, be himself. All right, continuing on. Akira Kurosawa refused to shoot the peasant village at Toho Studios and had a complete set constructed at Tagada on the Izu Peninsula. Shizuoka. Yeah, we'll go with that. Although the studio protested and the increased production costs, Kurosawa was adamant that the quality of set influences the quality of the actors' performances. For this reason, I have the sets made exactly like the real thing. It restricts the shooting, but encourages that feeling of authenticity. What a badass. And at this point, he knows he's got clout in the studio. He's like, I can do this. Kind of like when I think it was right before Avatar came out. I think James Cameron said he wanted another $50 million to finish the film. And it's already, they were in development for years at that point. And the studio said, we refuse to give you this money. And he says, who do you think paid for the parking lot out back, man? That's Titanic money right there. Or something to that extent in a meeting. And everybody's like, after the meeting, everybody's like, yeah, damn it, he's right. Okay, we'll greenlight it. And then, of course, it's one of the most highest grossing films of all time. Don't doubt James Cameron or Kurosawa, apparently. All right, continuing on. The character played by... Oh, okay, yes. Okay, sorry. I thought it was repeating the same thing. That's why I connected these. Okay, gotcha. The character played by Miyafune has no name and is given Kiko Shiro by his companions. In Yojimbo, also directed by Akira Kurosawa, his character has no name. The one he gives to the bandits in the film is fake, so we never know his real identity. Interesting. And speaking of Kikochiro, it's the name he steals from a scroll tracing the family's lineage. He's made fun of this proclamation. According to the film, he is illiterate. The samurai show him he's taken the name of a 13-year-old girl. Yeah, we know this. Blah, blah, blah. The name means basically 1,000-year flower. The name is Chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum?
Thank you. That's what the name Kikochiro means. 1,000-year
chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum. Thank you. Which means basically it was given to a girl who hadn't reached the age of maturity, which is funny because they're like, that's an appropriate name for you. We're going to stick with that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. They call him Lord Kikuchiyo. It's which doesn't really that kind of that bit makes that scene so much funnier because I didn't realize that it was. I don't know if they stated it or not.
No, I don't think so. They said that's the name of a little girl though.
Though I don't remember if they stated it was a girl. I only remember them stating that
13 years old.
Yeah, you would be 13 years old. I don't remember them stating that was a 13-year-old girl.
I remember. I think they said that's a name. That's a girl's name or something like that. Because I remember they said 13 years old, and they said after that also it's a girl's name. So yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. I guess I missed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes that
out of the one time I paid attention to the movie, that was the time.
That's funny. So yeah, that definitely makes that scene a whole lot funnier.
Yeah.
As them calling him Lord Kikuchiyo.
Oh, this was a funny one. The loud enthusiasm displayed by the wood-chopping samurai was the inspiration for John Belushi for his samurai character in Saturday Night Live. Especially when he's like introduced and he's yelling as he's chopping wood in the movie. Yeah, I could see it's exactly what Jim Belushi was going for. It's pretty funny. Excuse me, John Belushi. Let's see. Finally, none of the 7 samurai in the film are bested by sword fights, archery, or spear fighting by the bandits. The samurai who are killed in the film are shot by a musket. Pretty interesting, for sure. And it's cool because they're never bested by swords or anything like that, but it's the modern technology that kills them. Pretty cool. And that's pretty much all I got about 7 Samurai, David. What a picture. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Great film.
Yeah.
It's you definitely have to get over certain things to invest yourself in the film, but if you can manage to invest yourself in the film, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Really, really friggin' good. And again, like, I wasn't super incredibly invested in everything until the siege started. But even when the siege started, I already spent all this time with these characters. And then to see them all in danger, be like, okay, who's gonna bite the dust? What's happening? You know, like, you get invested, and it does a good job of that. As well as the whole siege thing is super fascinating. Like, a lot of things just happen, and they make it very entertaining. It's a great film. So, as well as Godzilla. But with that, I think we'll end it there, David. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Thank you, David, for your time, as well as watching these films. And yeah, let's make like Yojimbo, slice our way out of here, and Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.